The public sector is facing a wide array of challenges today. Every public organisation has felt the rise in demand for their services over the past few years, and the need to meet that demand without increasing their costs. This has placed a lot of pressure on many organisations, which is driving a great deal of investment in new technology. Innovations that can provide greater efficiency, higher productivity and better use of manpower are a priority to every organisation today. Over the next half hour, we'll be discussing how IT can solve the public sector's challenges with some of the industry's leading vendors. Given the profound stream of data that the public sector can access, the potential for insights are huge. What's more, in the current economic climate, it is especially important that public bodies become more efficient to continue to provide the core services that the public require.
I think the biggest challenge for the public sector that we see at the moment is how to spend money wisely. I think there are a lot of decisions that are being made in the short term, and what we're trying to do is look at issues in the long term. One of the challenges that we're seeing is that there's lots of funding going into projects, but actually are they giving a long-term legacy? For example, at the moment we've been looking at projects that are giving our clients a 25-year legacy, which is not something that is often considered in the political arena. There is a need to get results, there's a need to get elected, and those things. So everything is very much short-term, whereas hopefully with a bit of independence from that, we can stand back and say, actually, if you do this today, you will have a long-term solution. One of the examples we've found at the moment is that we could spend £50,000 on some resources in a school or in one of our client sites, or we could put some PV panels on the roof that would give you £8,000 a year for the next 25 years. So is it better to have £50,000 spent in this year or have £8,000 a year for 25 years? And they're the sort of conversations we're having with our clients at the moment, trying to look at the long term rather than the short term, which I think the political environment puts a lot of pressure on today.
Although public sector organisations are continuing to push for and adopt digital strategies, a fully fledged digital transformation is still some distance away for many agencies.
Finding the right company to work with in this area, I think, is probably one of the biggest challenges that the public sector has, because as you say, there is a wealth of offers out there, and in many cases a fairly inexperienced buyer and decision maker in these areas that struggles to tell the difference between the smoke and mirrors solution and what really is going to work, and not only what's going to work, but what's involved in making this work. You know, being shown something and seeing the application and it looks great, but actually what are the changes I'm going to have to go through in my organisation to make this work? And sometimes the market, the vendors are involved are not completely transparent about that and about what's involved, and not necessarily supporting the user. So it is a minefield, and I would suggest that some of the reasons that adoption is relatively slow in some areas of the public sector is because of that.
Public services recognise the business nature of what they do as opposed to purely a functional output. Then the economies of scale of utilising a capability that's been developed for a wider audience and or a wider customer base. Therefore, requirements, and we do a lot of work with defining requirements for our public sector customers. We do have a lot of discussion about maybe trading some of those traditional requirements out or compromising on capability in the short term for benefits in the longer term. And the public sector is becoming more comfortable with that approach, as long as there's a roadmap and an understanding that they can be refreshed or reviewed over a period of time.
I think the public sector is trying to do the right thing in how it manages its IT infrastructure. But I'm having conversations today with clients that I was having 12 years ago. I've been doing the work I've been doing for the last 20 years, and some of the things that I did 12 years ago with clients, we're still seeing clients not adopting those technologies. The technologies have been, products like SharePoint were available for collaboration and cloud computing in all intents and purposes in 2006, and people are saying it's a new thing. So it's how quickly do we adopt things, and we're still not sharing data as effectively as we can. So I think there's a real desire to do things, but it's people again, it's like want to hold it close. IT technicians and IT specialists often want to keep that power close to them because again that they control the route out to the data.
Increasingly, public sector organisations are using IT solutions to enhance the way their data is collected, analysed and reported to enable better decision making. With innovative systems, data capture processes enable greater levels of efficiency, empowering staff across the board to make the right decisions by giving them the data they need.
Use of data has revolutionised how we manage our estate, and it enables us to make informed decisions on a strategic level. So we're able to compare apples with apples from each school within our estate to ensure that we are able to deliver our school condition allocation funding to direct it toward need as opposed to want. It'd be very difficult to do that independently. The product's there, it's an easy to navigate system which enables the user to feel empowered to make those decisions in a professional manner.
Where people see the value of their input into the overall endeavour, there is a greater sense of job satisfaction. There's also, and rightly, more opportunity for them to challenge the quality of the decision making from others. And so we're very keen on making sure that we ask the experts on any given area to challenge any strategy we develop. Why wouldn't you want the people who really know to talk to you? And the data helps them do that better.
In relation to the cottage industry, the small SMEs in the marketplace, it's a very hard one because part of me says actually we need a bigger solution to get efficiencies, and then I'm an SME, so therefore am I shooting myself in the foot? So I think part of it is looking at it that there are strengths and weaknesses to both arguments. Do we want a big IT system, a big data platform for every school in the country? In all intents and purposes, we have it with Capita Sims providing data services to 80% of the education estate, but that's delivered 27,000 times. It's not delivered as one big platform with a subscription model. So I think that there is that strengths and weaknesses. People saying, well, actually, I need to have a plug-in to do that piece of work. And actually, if they were trained and upskilled themselves on the core platform they have, they might not buy that extra piece of software. So part of me says that, and then part of me says, well, I'm providing a service that allows you to do your own thing and have your own cottage industry. I think part of the approach we've taken is that we're building all of our compliance tools, our condition tools, our dashboards on a Microsoft platform. We're not creating something new. We are taking a suite of Microsoft products out of the box and putting an education wrap on it. We're not going out there and building a whole new solution. All we're doing is taking some standard Microsoft product and making it into a tool that is engaging. So hopefully we're trying to do a bit of that big picture of being a big player by using the Microsoft tools, but putting a very bespoke wrap on it for our clients.
IT systems are extremely complex. Many platforms have taken years to build, far beyond what any organisation could ever invest themselves. This makes partnerships a critical part of IT, bringing in vendors who have the expertise to develop what's needed and a proven track record of delivery. Finding the right partners can be challenging, but it pays dividends in the long run and is critical for a successful IT project.
What we're trying to do as an organisation is work around a whole suite of robust and secure Microsoft tools. Obviously, there's a whole range of challenges around data security, data protection, ISO 27001, GDPR, hacking and all of those sort of things. And when we started the business, I looked at the options available, and my view was, rather than going out and building our own servers in our own server farm and our own data centre, if somebody hacked our system, we're never going to put in place the robust procedures and plans that Microsoft have. So if we build our platform on a Microsoft platform, use the standard box of a suite of tools, then we can add in our own intelligence onto what we do with that. So Power BI is a very powerful platform that the customization of that is where the intelligence is. It's a tool like Excel and Word is, but fundamentally it's how you use that, and we all know that we all use 20% of the functionality of it. What we're trying to use is using 80-90% of the functionality of Power BI, which our clients won't be able to do, but we can do for them. And so they've got the comfort that they're buying something that isn't just developed and known by us. They're buying the intellect and the knowledge. And I think one of the things that we'll see in the future, there will be a lot of automation in that data process, but there will still be some human intervention in there because somebody's got to work out what to do with the data. We can automate the collection, be electricity meter data, condition data, BMS information systems, all those plugging together, but it's what you do with that data that will make a difference. And I can't see without some human intervention for the foreseeable future that may happen.
We embarked on a fairly ambitious program of re-roofing at an early stage based on the data that we analysed through the EO portal, and although that was quite a large program to begin with, over a period of 4 or 5 years that's generated significant benefits because we're now not having to deal with retrospective maintenance, fixing internal finishes that were perhaps an ongoing maintenance issue, and those savings have now been able to be rolled forward into more meaningful capital projects going forwards.
One of the key areas in which the public sector is finding ways to improve services is through cognitive technology. AI in government can reduce costs, increase efficiency, enhance reach and focus more resources on frontline priorities.
Having leaders in NHS organisations and public sector organisations is going to make a real difference. Our Secretary of State at the moment is already forecasting that in the future actually chief executives of public sector organisations are more likely to have come from a technology background. Such will be the extent of the delivery, not just of back office, but of our services. Relying on digital solutions to do that. So absolutely, but it isn't just that leadership within the organisations. It's also going to require leadership being taken at a practice and a discipline level, and by that I mean sort of within the clinical areas and practitioners that. Also within their communities that there is leadership there. It's not enough just to have it within the organisation. There is always going to be a mix of responses to that, and obviously a lot of people that are in those professions, are in the caring professions, are there because they want to treat patients, and that's why they're there. But when you can start demonstrating, as has already been the case in some areas, and if I use procurement as an example, actually if you can take away some of the administrative tasks that they have that are sucking up their time and energy, so for example like finding equipment, ordering new equipment, receipting new equipment and products that they use in what they do, if you can start to take some of that away, releasing their time with patients and being able to care, then they're going to see an advantage of that straight away.
In the long term, AI promises to induce massive changes in the public sector and how employees get their work done. In the near term, large job losses are unlikely. However, cognitive technologies will undoubtedly transform the nature of many jobs, as much of workers' time will be freed up to focus on other, more pressing and less mundane tasks.
How do people feel about AI in the workplace? I think there's a lot of mythology about AI out there. I think there's a lot of dystopian landscapes being created by people commentating on the implementation of technology. I think there's a concern about job losses, but ultimately it's like any industrial revolution. This is the fourth industrial revolution. Taking people back to the first industrial revolution, folks were concerned about the fact that horses were being implemented in farming, and there was lots of riots associated with it. Second industrial revolution, there was plant and machinery being introduced, and people felt that that should be taxed. This is no different. It's a form of technology really that takes the drudgery out of people's workday. And taking the drudgery out of people's workday gives two benefits. One is it makes them feel better about going into work every day. staff retention rates then increase. But the second thing is there's direct correlation with throughput and efficiency within that organisation. My view about artificial intelligence is it's got to be much more than just taking jobs out. I think that's a negative way of implementing the technology, and it's not necessarily one that will fulfil that return on investment. What we should be looking to do is to enrich people's workplace experience, but also to enable them to have a much better workplace experience and to deliver efficiencies via that softer gain.
While it's highly unusual for a business improvement to boost speed, improve quality and simultaneously reduce costs, cognitive technologies offer this exciting possibility.
So companies, when they're looking at AI, really need to take a systematic approach. What they need to do is to identify the business processes that they've currently got. They need to consider which ones can be automated. And then what they need to do is to look at which of those processes can be automated using different types of technology. So which ones are suited to robotic process automation, which ones are then suited to artificial intelligence. And then once they've done that, work with an organisation like ourselves to identify what the business case would be associated with that implementation of technology. Then what we recommend is that you start small. So pick one process, look at how it can be automated, look in particular what the efficiency gains are going to be from that automation of process, and then the savings that can be attributed to it thereof.
If you don't bring people along on the journey, and journey is an overused word, but quite often it is, they have to be bought in and be communicated to on a regular basis as to the impact of this change and how their lives are going to be impacted by it. Without that, you can have the best tools and processes in the world, but if your employee base and the users of that system aren't engaged and on board, then it makes life a lot more difficult. So I think it's all about articulating the benefit of the change and keeping a focus on the benefits. So if there are changes that have to occur in digital transformation that will have potentially a negative impact on the short term to the user or the person operating that system, then it's about highlighting how that change impacts and has an impact on the end benefit of it, whether that be user experience, efficiency, cost, etc., etc.
So there will always be pros and cons with every service out there. Some will benefit, and security is a key area. Some are more secure than others, and with that comes a cost. And clearly, advantages and a cost-benefit analysis of those cloud capabilities is done by public services. We are seeing an increase in relationships between public service and the closer they're working. And therefore, it's not quite so easy just to mix and match. There has to be a longer view to an extent for interoperability purposes. This is becoming easier as standards become more open, but there will always be advantages and disadvantages.
Already, the public sector is witnessing impressive levels of savings. For example, Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs has automated the most tedious of its call centre work, opening case numbers for advisors, so they're no longer required to search the database. This has led to a reduction in handling times by 40% and processing costs by 80%.
So return on investment on a cognitive agent project is actually quite quick. There are quite a few automation projects out there that take well over a year, sometimes 18 months, and even then the return on investment is very difficult to define. What we found from our experience is that organisations are seeing a return on investment at least at 3 months, but certainly no later than 6 months. And then beyond that, they're really into the positive delivery of benefits. So when we look at any project, I always question why that technology has been implemented. I've seen quite a few out there that have used artificial intelligence because it's the new kid on the block. What I try to encourage organisations to do is to look at the underlying return on investment and what they're actually going to get out of it. If it's got a costed project and it's got tangible benefits that can be delivered, it's got far more chance of being successful, and therefore the technology can then be replicated across many other processes throughout that organisation.
So clear user requirements, what is it that the customer requires and how that's actually being audited and tracked and taken from user engagement, how it's then processed through hopefully an agile delivery approach dependent on what the system is you're trying to deliver. In short, agile is about enabling you to accommodate changing requirements and prioritising those requirements throughout the development life cycle. It is about making the most of last responsible moment, and it is about delivering quite often low-hanging fruit and trying to ensure that quite often in these systems 20% of the requirement fulfills 80% of the user need, and it's ensuring that those requirements are tracked all the way through. But also, if there are changes, then you have a delivery approach flexible enough to accommodate them.
So the level of protection that is put on data and information is a constant discussion point across the public sector. Defence is a key area, obviously, but with the introduction of legislation such as GDPR, it is equally recognised across all areas of public sector. In the past, a lot of money and time has been spent and resource on developing security for particular public service areas, defence being a case in point. However, absolutely there are commercial solutions now that can offer a level of security that perhaps wasn't available before. So this is a good encouraging point for the marketplace. You know, the public sector does have an opportunity to buy commercially grade security. However, there's still, because of the nature of public service, there is an accountability element, and the wider, the threats against data security are increasing exponentially. They are massive these days. Therefore, there is still a requirement to a point to develop in-house security measures. But that might not just be technical. That might be in the nature that data is managed.
I think when it comes to ensuring the public sector can keep pace with changing technology, and especially when it comes to training, virtualization, intuitive by design, all these things can support that, but delivering systems in an agile way where you've got progressive assurance throughout the development process is key. You get user testing and you try and minimize the bow wave of training burden and potential delay to actually rolling the system out.
I don't think you can look at public service as a whole as a simple don't invest enough in IT or do invest too much. There are some fantastic initiatives going on between departments at the moment. Defence particularly has recognised the need and is working closely with suppliers and with technical experts such as ourselves to really forward look into as much as they can into the future. There are huge challenges with traditional ways of working, and I think it's not about simply going out and investing IT, it's more about understanding the current operations of departments and public sector bodies and how they potentially need to adapt in order to best utilise IT. So it's not a simple case of going out and buying a computer to simply make a job easier. It's about it's the cost-benefit analysis of buying new IT, but actually there's a huge impact on the organisation and culture change of some of these departments.
I think it's fundamental. If you don't have a system designed with the user at its heart, then more often than not you're going to have more questions, more errors, more issues, and lack of credibility in the system that you roll out. Nowadays we're asking the user to provide more information, and it's about how they can best do that and as efficiently as possible. I believe more often than not 20% of the usability of a system can fulfill 80% of the requirement of the user and the authority body requiring that functionality. I think more often than not it's simpler to go with a more simplistic system, but ensure that it's open and can be integrated with other systems to ensure that you can have cross-referencing and cross-use of the same information.
When you're implementing artificial intelligence, the old rules still apply. You've got to have a tight business case. You've got to look at the return on investment that you're providing, and basically it has to pay for itself. I always think that you should start small and think big with these types of projects. So pick an area that's easier to implement, pick an area where you can see fast, tangible benefits. But more importantly, if you want to keep that process operating in the same way that it always has, then think about how you can use this technology to do so. It doesn't always follow that you have to radically change the business process that you're trying to automate, even if the information sources that you're looking at come from a variety of different sources. So they might come from systems of record like ERP, they could come from legislative sources, they could be corporate policy. Some of the process stuff that we implement is from people's heads. The point is that we're looking to automate all of that so that the throughput on that process is much quicker than it currently is using a manual process. And more importantly, there's an opportunity to reduce human error by implementing this type of technology. Levels cognitive agents can be implemented quite quickly. We've seen benefits from customers being delivered in 3 months. In comparison with other artificial intelligence-based applications, it's far faster and the benefits are more tangible in a quicker way. What we do at Level is to implement human thinking technology. We're basically mimicking human thought in the implementation of artificial intelligence. So what we're not looking to do is to replace that human in the organisation. We're looking to enrich their jobs from a day-to-day process, make sure they're more motivated to come in each day, but from the organisation's perspective, there is this opportunity to be much more efficient as a result of automating that process that the person's involved in.